Sarcasm is a sharp, bitter, or cutting expression, a remark, a bitter gibe, a taunt. Sarcasm may employ ambivalence, although sarcasm is not necessarily ironic. The distinctive quality of sarcasm is present in the spoken word and manifested chiefly by vocal inflections. The sarcastic content of a statement will be dependent upon the context in which it appears. Origin of the term. The word comes from the Greek sigma alpha rho kappa alpha sigma mu omicron sigma, which is taken from sigma alpha rho kappa alpha zeta epsilon iota nu, meaning to tear flesh, bite the lip, enrage, sneer. It is first recorded in English in 1579 in an annotation to the Shepherd's Calendar by Edmund Spenser. Tom Piper, an ironical sarcasmus, spoken in derision of these rude wits which, ... However, the word sarcastic, meaning characterized by or involving sarcasm, given to the use of sarcasm, bitterly cutting caustic, doesn't appear until 1695. Usage. In its entry on Irony, Dictionary.com describes sarcasm thus: in sarcasm, ridicule or mockery is used harshly, often crudely and contemptuously, for destructive purposes. It may be used in an indirect manner, and have the form of irony, as in, "What a fine musician you turned out to be," quote, "It's like you're a whole different person now," and "Oh, well then thanks for all the first aid over the years." Or it may be used in the form of a direct statement: "You couldn't play one piece correctly if you had two assistants." The distinctive quality of sarcasm is present in the spoken word and manifested chiefly by vocal inflection. Distinguishing sarcasm from banter, and referring to the use of irony in sarcasm, Bousfield writes that sarcasm is the use of strategies which on the surface appear to be appropriate to the situation, but are meant to be taken as meaning the opposite in terms of face management. That is, the utterance which appears on the surface to maintain or enhance the face of the recipient actually attacks and damages the face of the recipient. Sarcasm is an insincere form of politeness which is used to offend one's interlocutor. John Hyman writes, "There is an extremely close connection between sarcasm and irony, and literary theorists in particular often treat sarcasm as simply the crudest and least interesting form of irony." Also, he adds, "First, situations may be ironic, but only people can be sarcastic. Second, people may be unintentionally ironic, but sarcasm requires intention. What is essential to sarcasm is that it is overt irony intentionally used by the speaker as a form of verbal aggression." While Henry Watson Fowler writes, "Sarcasm does not necessarily involve irony, but irony, or the use of expressions conveying different things according as they are interpreted, is so often made the vehicle of sarcasm." The essence of sarcasm is the intention of giving pain by bitter words. Understanding the subtlety of this usage requires second-order interpretation of the speaker's or writer's intentions. Different parts of the brain must work together to understand sarcasm. This sophisticated understanding can be lacking in some people with certain forms of brain damage, dementia and autism, and this perception has been located by MRI in the right parahippocampal gyrus. Research has shown that people with damage in the prefrontal cortex have difficulty understanding nonverbal aspects of language like tone. Richard Delmonico, a neuropsychologist at the University of California, Davis, told an interviewer, "Such research could help doctors distinguish between different types of neurodegenerative diseases, such as frontotemporal dementia and Alzheimer's disease, according to David Salmon, a neuroscientist at the University of California, San Diego. In William Brandt's critique of sarcastic reason, sarcasm is hypothesized to develop as a cognitive and emotional tool that adolescents use in order to test the borders of politeness and truth in conversation. Sarcasm recognition and expression both require the development of understanding forms of language, especially if sarcasm occurs without a cue or signal. Sarcasm is argued to be more sophisticated than lying because lying is expressed as early as the age of 3, but sarcastic expressions take place much later during development. According to Brandt, sarcasm is a form of expression of language, often including the assertion of a statement that is disbelieved by the expressor, although the intended meaning is different from the sentence meaning. The recognition of sarcasm without the accompaniment of a cue develops around the beginning of adolescence or later. Sarcasm involves the expression of an insulting remark that requires the interpreter to understand the negative emotional connotation of the expressor within the context of the situation at hand. Irony, contrarily, does not include derision, unless it is sarcastic irony. The problems with these definitions and the reason why this dissertation does not thoroughly investigate the distinction between irony and sarcasm involves the ideas that people can pretend to be insulted when they are not, or pretend not to be insulted when they are seriously offended. An individual may feel ridiculed directly after the comment and then find it humorous and neutral thereafter, and the individual may not feel insulted until years after the comment was expressed and considered. Cultural perspectives on sarcasm vary widely, with more than a few cultures and linguistic groups finding it offensive to varying degrees. Thomas Carlyle despised it. Sarcasm I now see to be, in general, the language of the devil, for which reason I have long since as good as renounced it. Fyodor Dostoevsky, on the other hand, recognized in it a cry of pain. Sarcasm, he said, was usually the last refuge of modest and chaste-souled people when the privacy of the soul is coarsely and intrusively invaded. RFC 1855, a collection of guidelines for Internet communications, includes a warning to be especially careful with it as it may not travel well. A professional translator has advised that international business executives should generally avoid sarcasm in intercultural business conversations and written communications because of the difficulties in translating sarcasm. A 2015 study by L. Hu Wang, F. Gino and A. D. Galinsky of the Harvard Business School tests a novel theoretical model in which both the construction and interpretation of sarcasm lead to greater creativity because they activate abstract thinking. Vocal indication. In English, sarcasm is often telegraphed with kinesic, prosodic cues by speaking more slowly and with a lower pitch. Similarly, Dutch uses a lowered pitch, sometimes to such an extent that the expression is reduced to a mere mumble. But other research shows that there are many ways that real speakers signal sarcastic intentions. One study found that in Cantonese, sarcasm is indicated by raising the fundamental frequency of one's voice. Punctuation. Though in the English language there is no standard accepted method to denote irony or sarcasm in written conversation, several forms of punctuation have been proposed. Among the oldest and frequently attested of the percontation point, furthered by Henry Denham in the 1580s, and the irony mark, furthered by Alcantara de Bram in the 19th century. Both of these marks were represented visually by a backwards question mark. Each of these punctuation marks are primarily used to indicate that a sentence should be understood as ironic, but not necessarily designates sarcasm that is not ironic. By contrast, more recent proposals, such as the snark mark, or the use of the following tools are specifically intended to denote sarcasm rather than irony. A bracketed exclamation point, a question mark, as well as scare quotes are also sometimes used to express irony or ironic sarcasm. In certain Ethiopic languages, sarcasm and unreal phrases are indicated at the end of a sentence with a sarcasm mark called temhate slack, a character that looks like an inverted exclamation point. The usage directly parallels John Wilkins's 1668 proposal to use the inverted exclamation point as an irony mark. A proposal by Astarasigi and Daniel Jacob in 1999 to include the temhate slack in Unicode was unsuccessful. Identifying sarcasm. A French company has developed an analytics tool that claims to have up to 80% accuracy in identifying sarcastic comments posted online. In June 2014, the United States Secret Service requested bids for software that would identify sarcasm in tweets.